All right, good morning. Just got back from New York City. That was a splendid trip. Great opportunity to meet some people and spend some time in the Big Apple. All right, what do I want to talk about today? I guess I wanted to, throw some numbers at you. We've talked about these numbers before, but I really want you to think about this today. The last 12 months, like what they do is they keep track of data on a 12-month rolling period. And I think the last segment they did was April 2017 to April 2016. I saw this several places, and this is the CDC. And the number of deaths, overdose deaths at that point were 65,000 and change. So it's very likely that you're going to hit 70,000 actually. Then once the numbers really come in, once they really get accurate data around why people died, you're probably looking at 70,000 people dead from overdose. Again, at the height of the AIDS epidemic, 45,000 people died. Now, another thing that I saw, I've always known this, but another thing that just popped up and really has me thinking. 88,000 people will die as a direct result of alcohol misuse this year. That's been the case for decades. So do the math. 88,000 plus 70,000, 158,000 people. Throw in, other situations, probably where people die of an accident related to alcohol that doesn't get coded as an alcohol-related death. You could easily say 200,000 people every year die as a result of substance use disorders. There has never, ever in the history of mankind, in the history of civilized society, been a more serious public health issue than addiction. That is a fact. 200,000 people dead a year with anything else would be such a public outcry. The people who were suffering from this would be in the streets. Their families would be in the streets. There would be demand for brand new solutions. So how is it that our away with the same old approach year in and year out, the same old funding mechanisms year in and year out? I'm reading a book. You can't really see it. It's called Originals. This is the third time I've read this book, and every time I read it, I see something different. But the most recent thing, a fascinating study done by some social psychologists, and what they did was they looked at disparity among income groups. They were trying to study, who is most upset in any given society? Is it the people that are suffering, or is it the people that are in charge and doing okay? Like, in other words, who promotes change in any given society? And the assumption was it was the people suffering. So if you have a group of people that are being pushed down, they would be the group that would push against the status quo. That was the assumption. So in this particular experiment, what they did was they looked at high income earners and low poverty-stricken income earners. And they asked questions like, do you think everything is as it should be? Do you think there should be massive sweeping societal change? Do you think that we should promote societal change? That kind of stuff. And believe it or not, what they found was the stigmatized, discriminated against group appreciated the status quo more than the people who were in charge. And what they found was groups that are pushed down, they don't like to question things because it makes them feel bad, it makes them feel worse about the situation. In other words, if you're pushed down, you basically feel better if you tell yourself, this is just the way it is. This is just how it is. There is no other solution. Fascinating. And tell me that doesn't apply to people with addiction and their families. Oh, we can't do anything different. We can't demand anything other than 28-day rinse and repeat rehab. We can't do anything other than the failed treatment system and just stick with that. Our private treatment system, $46 billion that these insurance companies just keep throwing out the window, throwing out the window, throwing out the window. Why don't people say anything? Because when you are in a stigmatized, marginalized group, you accept it because that's better than dealing with the dissonance and the anger and the outrage over a system that could be different. In other words, it's easier to accept death if it's just the way it is. than if we're being done wrong. But the problem is, you got to get in touch with the fact that we are being done wrong, because the moral outrage associated with that will push for change. Things can be different, but understand things will never, ever be different under our current system. Nothing will change until the fundamental structures change. The payment system, where we house this stuff. Addiction services should be part of healthcare in general. It shouldn't be getting rushed off to some elaborate rehab, luxury rehab. Addiction services should be localized. Everything that we're doing it wrong. And I don't think that's ever been more self-evident in the history of mankind. 200,000 people dead per year. If we're doing it right, God, I'd really hate to see if we were doing it wrong. When will you stand up? 1 million people dead per year? Would that make you take notice? All right, my brothers and my sisters. Happy Thanksgiving if I don't talk to you soon.